You know, it's interesting. We've all been so focused on the phone and what the next iteration of the phone will be, whether it be revolutionary or evolutionary. I mean, how is the watch perceived in Cupertino in terms of the leaps and bounds it can make in terms of what people can do, what it can do in people's lives?
Well, one way it's perceived is as a moneymaker. This is a device that it's easy to forget inside a company like Apple that created the best, the most successful consumer tech device of all time. This is a device that rang up $13 billion in sales in 2020, Strategy Analytics estimates. That's a gigantic number for any company, including Apple. And of course, what they think about is they've got to sell every next generation of this device. So they got to put a new thing in it every year.
But it's not just a hardware sale, correct, Rolf? I mean, I'm assuming that this is going to sort of be part of that flywheel that gets people to subscribe to things, so boosting the services line item eventually.
Maybe. Most of the health-related features aren't so much something you'll subscribe to. They have some elements that, along with in kind of the fitness element of the watch, but really, you know, they're just trying to put a new sensor in every year or give you a new feature, some cool toy that, you know, roughly translates to upgrading the camera on your iPhone every year. So, for instance, last year it was putting a blood oxygen sensor in the watch. You know, this year it's going to be kind of changing the form factor of the watch. But some of those health-related features, they're hoping will start to drive sales, keep driving sales really in 2022 and beyond.
So where does this fit in the Apple ecosystem then, Rolf? I mean, obviously you need a phone, theoretically, to have the watch. So is it in that respect, if it's not going to drive the services revenue number?
Well, it's just a straight sale, right? These are devices that cost hundreds of dollars. And, you know, they're not always going to get service revenue out of it exactly. You don't buy a lot of apps on your watch, but it's a great device that they can add if you're an iPhone user. Then a watch gives you a whole bunch of additional functions, especially if you're you know, into working out a lot, a fitness type of person. It just gives you all this kind of additional stuff, and it's the upsell, right? It's what companies, they're going to sell you one thing. Let's sell you this other thing for a few hundred dollars more. And if we can get you to keep upgrading every few years, that's a great business.
Rolf, I have a question for you. So I am a power user. I've got my watch, I've got my Oura Ring. I care about these things, but I also know that battery life is important. And if you're going to wear it all night long, I'm just not sure how this works. And so when you think about the time frame to get this done, not is it possible to get it done, but it has to be done well enough so someone's going to use it and be able to get useful data. Have you looked at it all at, you know, how possible is this in the time frame to get that done such that it's a real solution for somebody versus people piecing things together?
Well, battery life is one of the questions you have for something like the watch. One of the features that they're thinking about is sleep apnea detection, which really involves firing that blood oxygen sensor on your wrist overnight. That would be difficult to do. That sucks up a lot of battery life. And by the way, a lot of people are charging their watches overnight. So can that be done? I mean, this is really one of the key challenges with the watch. They want to do a lot of these upgrades. They want to get you to buy each new version of the device, but they're really up against some pretty significant limitations when it comes to health-specific features for the watch, which really are, you know, really a key focus. I mean, that's the tagline of their watch ads is the future of health is on your wrist. Except, you know, there are actually some key problems with that. Like, among others, the wrist isn't a great place to measure vital signs.
We've noticed that. I mean, the doctor usually doesn't go for the wrist with the blood pressure cut. He usually goes for the upper arm.
No, right?
Yeah.
And that's a key thing to know is that what they do in blood pressure on your wrist is not, they're not going to give you systolic and diastolic blood pressure. They're going to give you a blood pressure trend, which will tell you something, but you don't necessarily know exactly what.
Rolf, great to speak with you. Thank you. Rolf Winkler, The Wall Street Journal.
Melissa.
Tim, what's your trade on Apple here?
Well, fascinating stuff by Rolf. And I think you have this ebb and flow between it being a hardware or a software story for investors. And we've been doing this now for 3 years, and it's been part of the re-rating story. I think it's a hardware story right now. So Rolf's referring to a hardware story. He's referring to the watch, which is that moving the needle? I think it's about the iPhone upgrade cycle. I think 5G is fascinating, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate the investments on the network that have been made by people like T-Mobile, et cetera. And so using these phones is part of it. I don't think that's why they're upgrading. I actually think Apple is a story that should be trading 25 to 26 times.